live podcast of Caffelogue with Naga, and I have an interesting conversation to be lined up for today with Aatish. So before we get into introduction and deep dive into what today's topic is about, I want to wish everyone across the world a happy Mother's Day. So while we are starting this on a great occasion, so I want to definitely thank two strong women in my life, my mother and my wife, so who has shaped me and continuously shaping me and bringing me down all the time whenever I'm trying to go crazy. So thank you for joining today on such special occasion, Atish, and once again wishing everyone a happy Mother's Day. So um, I mean, Atish and me, we've known each other for, I mean, 2008, 9, and the EMEA uh, comp team, and he was working on. So it's been, I just think 16 plus years is so
Yeah.
long, and he's been a great support for me throughout. Lot of times we've talked, and I think I've I've got inspired. I mean, he's a very genuine person to talk. I mean, and he brings a lot of uh, experience, especially in comp and ben and rewards, and throughout his career, he's been focused on that, and he's very good at numbers. So I had opportunity to work with him, and we put together. I think when we decided to talk and bring you to my podcast, Atish, I went to nostalgia. I mean, it was nostalgia. I went to the business objects reports we were putting together for the comp and ben team in EMEA. so yeah, it is a long journey, and I've learned a lot from you. So I thought, especially my understanding of the data and looking at the analysis of the financial data, I think there are a lot to I would give it to you, because when I worked with you, the way you explained and how we worked together, so those are things I still remember. So that has helped me throughout my journey as well. So welcome again to my
Thank you.
podcast, and I'm very happy and thrilled to have you.
Thank you very much, Naga, and thank you for that introduction. Happy Mother's Day to everyone as well. And I'm really happy to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Great. Thank you, Atish. So today, I think the way we look at rewards or compensation and benefits has changed over you know last 20 years. So I remember when I get my when I got my first offer letter, or even after that, when I look at the a lot of things which I don't understand is the whole structure of the compensation. It took a lot of effort for me to even understand and try to break down what are the different types of benefits you get it, and be cognizant of the fact when you're actually trying to get a job. So these are important points to remember, right? It took the journey has been today the kids are very smart, and they know what they want, and and I lot of times I learn from the current generation in terms of the way they're thinking about, you know, right? So yeah, so talk. I mean, give me an introduction. I mean, I think for the audience,
Yeah.
I know you, but I want to know your background, and what you have done, and you have a pretty exhaustive experience in this space, and working for very privileged organizations like BT, now in Ferring, and Juniper. So let's please give a
Yeah.
introduction and what you've been doing,
Sure.
Atish.
Thank you, Naga. Yeah, so I started my journey back in 1995. I actually was training to be an accountant. I then moved into comp and ben space back in 2007, and that was when you and I met. This was Juniper Networks. I've basically been in comp and ben and reward space since then, working for a number of different companies. So it's been hardware, software, marketing, professional services, telecommunications, BT, as you mentioned, and now I'm in pharmaceutical business. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. It's been great trying to sort of look at the change in the landscape and the change in the perceptions around reward, and it's interesting how there is a shift. So you said quite rightly, it seemed very unstructured in terms of the way we were putting our office together. Now it's a lot more kind of structured. There's almost an AI program, I guess, that pulls the letters and everything together now, and everything needs to sort of be discussed and considered. Whereas back in the day, and going back 20 years, there was really focus around salary and base salary, and not much else beyond that. So yeah, we've come a long way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think some of the relationship when you build in your professional career stands beyond the work, right? So at least with you and me, and we've talked a lot beyond work too during the time we worked, and your support has been immense, and I've learned a lot. I think that's what I speaks for your speaks from your experience too, the way you're trying to tell how from structured unstructured to structured, right? I think those days, even a report when you're building, like how precise you are in terms of analysis. And yeah, I think it's a very long journey, but yes, it's a very powerful, and you've created a lot of impacts. So I think I want to deep dive into um, especially the total rewards and how you're creating value for the organization at this point. So
Yeah,
without further ado, I wanted to dive into our first question. So you your experience over 25 plus years of experience in this space, things have evolved, from, as you said, it was just a component band was not really as a function which was really looked at from an organization, right? But, while it
yeah,
was more of a back end organization where only
absolutely.
during the offer letter probably they will do the math and give you give the numbers, but then the focus has been only with HR, or probably I would say pretty much HR, and people has been people, while comp and ben plays a major part in terms of the people continuing in an organization, not just compliment. I think the rewards as a concept, but the
Yeah,
focus has been on only human resource. So talk about that shift, and what you have seen in the past to now, how organizations are actually
yeah,
focusing on this, especially people make the organization beyond
yeah,
technology and process. So these are, I mean, please bring your perspective, right?
sure,
2025, what I understand from Mercer's actually, strategy as well is, right, how do start how do strategically, help and revive the total rewards or rewards structure, and also help the leaders in that industry. So uh, please give your perspective,
sure.
Aatish.
No, thank you, Naga, and yeah, I totally agree with you. So if I look back at my own journey within the reward space, and as I said, I started back in 2007. You're absolutely right. I think there was a perception that reward was a back office function, which basically just does the paperwork, creates the contracts and what have you. And since then, it's been a massive shift in that thinking, because at the end of the day, we play a very crucial role in the talent attraction and retention space, right? So it's about getting the offers right. It's about making sure that we've got the right people doing the right job in the company. So my role has changed quite a bit as I see it, and I'm sure your listeners will probably resonate with this. But I think the focus has shifted from just creating contracts to actually looking at what is the best offer for the best candidate. So there's been a lot of a sort of drive from companies to get that piece right, because if you don't get it right, you lose good candidates to competitors. So that's kind of the first piece. The second piece is, I think people have very quickly realized that when you look at your P&L, your people costs happens to be one of your biggest cost items in your profit and loss statement. And one of the key drivers is reward, in terms of making sure that we are most cost effective in all of the pay decisions that we make, but also doing the right thing to make sure that we remain competitive and we are able to deliver on our company results. So reward has been sort of been brought up to that level to actually help business leaders understand how they can actually improve and strategize around bringing in the best talent. And that is not just looking at creating paperwork, as I said, but it's actually looking at data. What is the market doing today? What kind of talent is out there? What kind of skills do we need for the future of the business? And how can we leverage our existing reward strategy to bring the right talent on board? So reward has changed quite fundamentally as a function where before there was an expectation that HR would have some reward experience and they don't need a dedicated reward function, to now where I'm seeing a lot of businesses actually have dedicated reward teams sitting within HR. So it's a team of teams. So it's quite interesting to see that shift where reward has moved from just being paper pushers to actually being strategic partners to the business.
Absolutely. I mean, I see the change, but when I when I talk to different people in different organizations, the more and more focus is put on the change they have to do from a rewards and recognition standpoint, for the organization. I mean, it's mixed. While some organizations have already started putting effort in terms of revamping and trying to be competitive, but some are still continuing the same old methods
Right.
of working, right? So yeah, with that, I wanted to actually bring in a specific aspect, which is the theories of motivation.
Yeah.
So when we talk about theories of motivation, right? So I've put together the one of the slides where, while there are different theory exists, I mean, traditionally, when we look at the way a person, I mean, if you look during before independence or even after that, when people started working, or even if I go to probably you and me, if we talk to our parents, my father has worked in one organization for almost his whole career. So I don't
Yeah.
think so there is any motivation for him to actually, because especially if you're in the public sector, so there is no motivation. They have to really switch, right? Because they're sorted for life, and then um, and there is
Yeah.
no need for constantly looking at something which they have to move, because the thought process was different. It was very simple life. So but today the market is competitive, and to be motivated, there are multiple factors we need, right? So one is I think the specific in the slide, which I specific two theories which I want to really pick up your mind, is on the intrinsic motivation and the extrinsic motivation. So let's say intrinsic is more personal, and probably there are a lot of people still are self motivated, and they want to achieve, and they would contribute 150% in, or in whatever they do, and there is a continuous drive within them. But when you work in a organization, or probably if it is a corporate, the expectations are much different, but so probably it may not align with your own passion, but you still need some additional motivations to actually for you to continue to deliver that outcome. So
Right.
that's when the extrinsic motivation plays a very very major role in organization, right? So please give your perspective. How do you think the CNB, the comp and ban, or even the policies, when the leaders sit and talk about defining these strategies and pay packages, right?
Yeah.
How it has changed, and what is your perspective?
Sure, and yeah, Naga, I think you're absolutely right. I think kind of the job for life era is now sort of changing very quickly. I think people have become a lot more sort of determined in terms of what they want out of their jobs, and I think we have seen a massive shift in the way sort of certain skill sets in the market are sort of towards their jobs, and how they kind of see what the expectations have changed from the employers as well. So I mean, if we look at the post-COVID era, I mean, we talked about the Great Resignation, as it called it, because we saw a massive change in the way the workforce was sort of moving around. I think if I'm being fair, I mean, you're looking at a typical 3 to 5 year tenure expected on average in most of the industries actually, and certainly I'm based in London, and I see a lot of those kind of stats on a regular basis. So there's a shift in expectations is kind of what I'm heading with this. So if I'm sort of looking at what we used to do before and what we are sort of starting to look at now. Before it was, let's get the pay right, let's get the bonus right. We've got, as long as we've got that aligned, the benefits are a kind of an add-on. That's it. I think now we've got candidates actually proactively asking the potential employers, what is it that you offer? What is it that you can give me? My lifestyle has changed. My expectations have changed. I want to start a new family, or I'm looking after somebody who's clinically vulnerable. What can you offer me? And I think that has shifted the dial in terms of employers now being having to look into the benefit strategy and kind of looking at it and doing a deep dive, saying actually, if I'm a pharmaceutical company, the kind of candidates that are applying to my company are actually expecting state of the art sort of benefits around mental well-being, physical well-being, and so forth. Equally, if you were applying for a financial company, you'd expect lots of financial support, etc., given as standard. So companies are having to re-strategize around that, and that's what I'm seeing in terms of changes in my role. So my role is to kind of sort of look at the landscape, looking at the market, looking at what everybody else is doing, but then sort of trying to sort of see what we as employers can actually do to actually improve that decision process, because people are getting a lot more fussy. They are wanting, demanding a lot more from their jobs. And as I said, it's not just about pay, but it's also, coming down to things like flexible working. Flexible working has come under a lot of scrutiny here in the UK, and I'm sure it's elsewhere as well. So
Everywhere.
again, absolutely. So if you think about kind of the post-COVID era, companies were telling their employees to work from home. But that is now changing. We've got some very big names now sort of actually doing a U-turn and changing the policy to say people need to be back in the office. Now, if you are an employee or a candidate that's looking for a job where you want flexibility in terms of working from home because you've got young children, or you have old people that you're caring for, that is not good enough. So you cannot force those kind of policies on these people. So that is almost bringing a new shift in the way we are looking at our value proposition and seeing how can we not just be competitive, but what can we offer to attract that talent who might want to work from home or might want to do something different. So I think we need to be flexible, I guess, is what I'm saying.
True. Flexibility is the mantra to go when it comes to I mean, rewards, or even I think the sometimes this is one more question which I actually which is coming in my mind after you talked about the flexibility, right, as a key point. Sometimes it's more specific, the rewards or the compensation and benefits needs to be specific. So while there could be general recommendation from an organization's perspective of different roles, but sometimes there are niche skills and people are sometimes, as you say, there is a specific requirement, and to be flexible is very important. So do you think how in general organizations are actually receptive to make that exception, or not an exception? I would say exception maybe then becomes an outlier, but how do you work or set up a rewards function which actually addresses this aspect of flexibility? So do you see that change, or do you see it's a long way to go?
Absolutely. I think the short answer to that is absolutely it has changed, and it has changed quite a bit over the last few years. If I look at my own kind of sort of journey within that, I had my children earlier on, and now sort of I'm at a point where I'm flexible to try something new. I'm able to travel more, etc. So I think everybody's perspective does change, and I think there's two things to this. The first thing that I would say is employers need to understand what is it that the employees want. So I think this comes back to having a way of collecting employee survey data, or getting feedback from the employees to understand what is important to them. I think this is key, especially when you look at certain markets where there's been a massive shift in the expectations from the workforce. If you continue to operate on the same assumptions and principles that you are going to, what we did 10 years ago is still fit for purpose, I think that's wrong. I think the second thing is, we need to look at, how can we customize our reward offering to a degree, and this is where having that flexibility that I mentioned earlier becomes very important. I think we all operate in an environment where you love to have stipulated policies around everything, and you can have documented processes, etc. But sometimes there is a need to flex, especially if you are working with niche talent in the market where the skills are very scarce, and you don't have a lot of people applying for those roles. You need to be flexible, and that could even be opening up your search cross borders, right? So it's looking at I don't know, somebody from the UK working in Switzerland, for instance, because that is the right talent, is got the right skills, etc. So in order to do that, we need to go above and beyond. We have to try and flex our reward frameworks and see how we can actually accommodate that. Now, yes, there is one big thing which is, I would say, almost a limiting factor, but that's the budget, right? So it's what is the budget, and are we still able to bring somebody on, and can we afford it? So that affordability piece also has to be there, but that's one of the things that companies are being challenged as of today.
Great. So I think I wanted to bring up this Mercer's assessment, which is done. It says 85% of multinational organizations surveyed plan to develop or have started to develop benefits modernization strategy. So that's I know you also work with Mercer a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I've listened to Gordon Frost conversations and a lot of his research on this topic too, right? So it is very fascinating, especially for the current world of total rewards. So I think when we were chatting to do this conversation, and also offline, you talked about, I mean, Ferring has done a wonderful approach towards it. I think you've been part of contributing and trying to bring up that strategy too. So it's a very novel and I would say impactful strategy. So please talk about that for the audience, Aatish.
Sure. Thank you for that. And yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, if I look at Ferring, I joined Ferring back in September last year, and it's been an amazing journey. It's been an absolutely fantastic company to work for. The things that come to mind. So one of the things that actually I was attracted to was the fact that although it's a small company, we have some absolutely amazing talent that sits across the board. And some amazing offers in terms of the benefits. And I know this is something that you and I talked about. So at Ferring, we've got a plan called Building Families at Ferring, which is BFF program, and that is all about providing support to our employees around their fertility journey. So it's not just looking at sort of providing IVF options, but also looking at surrogacy, adoption, etc. So the company specializes in maternal health. We have an amazing sort of offering around gastroenterology and also uro-oncology as well. So from my perspective, it's where the employers need to question and challenge, how can I become a differentiator in the market and provide an offer which is not just focused around pay, but having benefits. And we have a number of employees in our company today who have actually benefited from the BFF program, and it's been an absolute success. So I'm very proud to sort of be working for an establishment where we are thinking beyond sort of what is the norm, right? And this is what companies need to be thinking about a lot more. How can we make our benefit strategy so attractive that people are sort of moving focus away from base salary on my offer and looking at what else we have to offer. And it's quite a compelling distinction to make, because especially if I look at Ferring's competitive landscape, we're competing with very big pharma companies, but we are one of the first to actually be rolling this out. So I'm really really proud of what we've done at Ferring.
Absolutely. I think amazing to hear such real examples of how a company is actually valuing the employee and thinking ahead. So this requires a well thought through strategy and package which is probably again, it's not, while the concept of utilizing or putting together such strategies applicable across the board, but then the way it would be serving purpose for one employee versus other would be completely different.
Yeah,
So in that case, the amount of budget which is spent across one individual throughout the journey of their lifetime versus the other may be completely different. So it's very novel, and kudos to Fairing for such employee focused
right.
initiatives and rewards program.
Absolutely,
um,
and it's that flexibility piece that I mentioned earlier. It's like where you are sort of flexing and adapting to where employees are in their sort of journey. So we kind of this was one of our key initiatives a couple of years ago, and as I said, we started the program back in 2022. But a lot of companies are still sort of in that phase where, to your earlier point, they're not even thinking beyond what is the absolute standard that we want to offer. So I think this is going to be the kind of the game changer,
Game changer.
to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think nobody thinks that they want to become a game changer and gets into it, but the objective is for employee focused, and there is a cost which which
right.
the organization wants to solve for it, but it
Absolutely.
becomes a game changer as an outcome, right? And why not? I think this again, as I specifically mentioned, it's maybe one who are looking at actually starting a family, or even after that. I think the support in terms of continuing the benefit, whether be it long parental leave. met- you know I think
Yeah.
Europe has been, especially, I was very fascinated, and also I liked the whole Nordic approach towards the childcare.
Right.
So I don't know anywhere else they can compete, but the not just the maternal leave, but the paternal leave which you can
Right.
take is absolutely a blessing
Yeah.
for any family to get, right? So I think people, a lot of organization, I don't think so we have to go that far, but at least somewhere in the middle, the organization can think about it.
Absolutely, and I think you're right about that. And again, this is where, as I mentioned earlier, it's that change in the expectations and what the employee needs at the time, and being flexible is absolutely fundamental. Because I think if you look at a lot of companies as of today, they've got some great maternity leave benefits. But it's more on the birthing parent, not on the non-birthing parent. So,
Mm,
it's being able to sort of be a little bit agnostic to gender, and saying, we offer this to all, to men and women. And I think that is what I'm now seeing a lot more in terms of the change and the shift in the approach to parental leave. And I think even if I look at sort of just in the last 5 years of my own career, I've seen a massive shift in, where people were initially just getting, let's say, 2 weeks of unpaid parental leave. Men are now sort of can expect up to 26 weeks of leave. And again, this is something, as part of our
wow.
BFF program, we have managed to implement, based on the local requirements, and also looking at local legislation as well. So where the legislation allows for more leave than that, Denmark, for instance, is a good example. We are then able to adapt and change that. But I think having that step forward and looking beyond just the maternal leave, I think is
Exactly.
important,
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, I think that more organizations thinking about it and doing such would send a message in terms of sharing the responsibility too,
Right.
because it's also an important aspect to look at when it comes to you know childbirth, and also after the childbirth, taking care of the child
Absolutely.
and bringing up, right? So it's a shared responsibility. Okay, moving on to my next question. I think you have done a lot of, I think, from your, when we started working together, is that the or I've seen your approach to comp and ben has not been always the same. So I mean, you're I mean, I've seen that you've challenged the status quo and try to
Right.
stir the ocean to bring up a change. So I think the lot of analysis, or I mean, you're definitely good with data, which I know. So the more emphasis on gender gap,
Yeah.
how far we have come on the in terms of the gender pay gap, and I think it is gender pay is focuses on the average, the pay gap between men and women. So what has been your um,
Yeah.
analysis and research, and probably how you are looking at your strategies, whether in the current organizations or even in the past, how the data has helped uh,
Sure.
in that front, right? Please share your experiences and probably some examples of what is the startling problems you have seen in the over the
Right.
past or even now.
No, absolutely, and it's a great question, Naga. I think pay equity has been a hot topic and a rather controversial topic for a long time. I think if you look at practices and look at UK itself, UK a government implemented gender pay gap reporting a few years ago, and
Mm.
that was exactly to fix the problem of the disparity between average pay for men and average pay for women. And I think it's been kind of that name and shame approach, which has now sort of forced companies to look at the gender pay gap. And certainly there's been a big shift in what was previously thought was acceptable, where people could or employers thought that it was okay to offer lower pay to women than men. And I think that I'm pleased to say is now shifting, and the dial is sort of moving not just on gender pay, but we are now sort of also talking about ethnicity pay gap reports
Yeah.
and disability pay gap reports. I think I'm absolutely moving in the right direction. If I talk about my own experiences, I think it's where a reward is able to question and challenge the way we operate today. So what I mean by that is sort of looking at our data, understanding where the pay gaps are. I think that's fundamental. So you're absolutely right about you have to love your data if you want to sit in everywhere. I know that sounds a bit geeky, but it's true. And long before we were talking about bringing AI into the reward space, you will find that reward professionals need to understand the data, and that's interrogating and analyzing data to understand where those gaps are. So where we can influence is making sure that we are questioning and challenging business where they believe that the best hire for a role is a male rather than a female. I'm actually saying absolutely not, and we need to be challenging that status quo all the way up to senior leadership level, because that approach is not right, and it's unethical from my own perspective. But what reward can do is making sure that we have we push our talent acquisition teams to create more opportunities for women. Women should be brought into sort of higher, more strategic roles, not just for operational roles. But also, I think where reward can help and support is making sure that we are creating offers which are sort of gender agnostic, right? So it's making sure that irrespective of whether you're hiring a male or a female, you're bringing the best, most competitive offer. So that's the piece. I think where they can help going forward, once you've got the talent in place, is to ensure that there are no sort of pay equity issues in the business, and that's where kind of that governance piece comes in. So one of my role is to kind of make sure that where we are seeing big gaps, in pay, that we address those. Just to be very clear, I think the gender pay gap reporting as you know, that's looking at the average pay for men versus women. It's not the same as equal pay, just to be very clear for you, and I'm sure your audience already knows that. And the last point is around, as you know, there's an EU pay directive
Yep.
which is happening.
Transparency.
This exactly, that directive is all about sort of bringing that same sort of governance principles into Europe. And if you look at where we are today, on average, there's a gender pay gap of around 12% still in some
Wow.
countries within Europe, which again is high. So the pay directive is actually being brought in to ensure that companies are then sort of held to account, and it's that name and shame that I mentioned earlier. Where people are not doing the changing their strategy to actually reduce the pay gaps. That is something that is open to everyone. And let me tell you another thing. When you are going out to attract and retain your top talent, gender pay gap is a very fundamental lever, right? So I mean, there are companies out there which have to advertise, and they've got to put their gender pay gap reports on their customer facing website, as well as report to the government. So it's been quite interesting that some industries and some sort of skills areas where there always has been an acceptance to having a gender pay gap, that is now being questioned and challenged quite rapidly. So I think we definitely are moving in the right direction, and hopefully, just on that, finishing off on the EU pay directive, I'm hoping that we can then sort of bring the same level of governance into Europe, and challenging businesses where they are making wrong decisions. So I think we definitely are stepping in the right direction.
Absolutely. I think it is important. I mean, whenever there is a government intervention, I think it's going to actually create a create a name and shame, and probably when you start putting out the reports, it's going to look ugly. But over the period, we have to start digesting the fact that unless you look at the data, you will not be able to make a change, right? So unless
Sure.
I see that, so
Yeah.
it's always that, right? We think what we think may not be right, but when you see the actual data, you actually have the proof in the pudding, so you need to really act
Right.
on it. So
Absolutely right.
it is yeah, it is very, very important. I hope across the world, and not just EU. Well, you talked about the EU, but across the world, this change, I see the change coming, and I think no more, the compensations are actually looked at for a similar role, be it
Yeah.
not just gender, but again, across other aspects as well. There is no differentiation in terms of the pay just because the person is of a different gender, or probably of different ability, right? So that should not be the case. So it's important to be having that
Absolutely.
parity. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for talking about it and bringing that examples, Atish. I think when it comes to uh, compensation and total rewards, it's actually a human centric approach, and we actually sometimes so people try to follow, okay, this is the trend or this is the practice which is followed across the market, and probably I have to adopt it. But more than that, we need to really look at what my employee or my team requires, as into what the market is following, right? There it should not be always, especially when it comes to such critical function like total rewards or human
Yeah.
resource. Following the crowd may not be the right approach, correct? It's
Right.
more always to be more of what my
Yeah.
people requires. So sometimes you can be a little bit different. So
Yeah.
that's good, that should be fine. So with that, I've tried to break down the total rewards. Maybe I want to get your feedback, how a
Sure.
total rewards, how organization can provide compelling value proposition for employees,
Yeah.
right? So the total rewards, when we see total rewards, are the components of total rewards. Beyond, so what the theme I was thinking is beyond salaries,
Correct.
beyond, right? It's not just the number which matters, but not only that. That's the only factor to look for. So core pay and the other cash bonus or overtime, equity, stock rewards, and then benefits like such as healthcare, medical, dental, vision, then your financial well-being like retirement savings,
Yeah.
should be one to look for. And then the career development and career progression. um, and also, this is important point, even when in the other market research, and also Mercer is talking about, is how when I look at an offer, not just these factors, but how is my values and my principles are aligning with the organization's values and principle where I'm getting
Right.
into. So I think these days, I see that matters. So I think when I look at total rewards, I see these are different components. So wanted to get your feedback or your
No,
perspective.
absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you. And again, great question. I think if I look at total rewards, the actual concept of total rewards isn't new. I mean, it's been around for quite some time, but I think the focus on total reward has been a lot more, and especially as I mentioned to you earlier, it's with this shift in the expectations from your candidates and from your employees that has sort of renewed the focus, let's say, around total rewards. And you're absolutely right. It's not just pay, but it's your short-term incentives, your long-term incentives, your package of benefits, your leave policies,
Right.
etc. And those are fundamental when we are sort of pulling total reward offers together. I think one of the big things that a lot of companies don't realize is that when you sort of package together everything that is on offer, not just your cash components or your cash elements in your reward, but also the non-cash elements. So let's say medical policies, etc., that they pay on behalf of the employee, etc. People don't actually have a proper view. When I say people, I mean employees. Employees don't have a clear view around what is the actual cost of them being employed by the employer. And that's why it's fundamental that where companies have a great set of benefits, it's actually ensuring that we have the right practices in place around having total reward statements and making sure that employees get a full view of what is it that the employee offers to them, both in cash and non-cash elements. And I think that's fundamental. I think the if you look at sort of companies that who have in the past struggled to retain top talent, it has sometimes been as simple as them not giving employees that visibility of exactly what they pay for, and that I think is something that employees can do. And a lot of my own experience, working in telecommunications and other sectors, I know that this is not something. It's not standard practice. So having a total reward statement is a first step towards giving visibility for employers and for employees in terms of what is being offered. And then I think that sort of dovetails very very nicely into what are the expectations, and what are the changes in lifestyles that then sort of demands more or less of other things. I bring a good example here. Private medical insurances. A lot of companies offer that as standard, but sometimes it's only for senior people, etc.
Mm.
There is a big shift now where people are saying, actually, even if you are not a senior manager or whatever in the company, there might be a demand for private medical for again, as I said, that flexibility piece that I mentioned earlier. So businesses are having to kind of shift their thinking that, okay, we can't continue to operate on that basis, and there's a shift towards flexible benefits. And so there's more and more companies actually offering flexible benefits today where they can actually pick and choose what they want. And I think that is again a big change that I'm seeing. And you get to appreciate this more and more when you are sort of getting that employee feedback, as I mentioned to you earlier on.
Got it. Yes, I think we talked about offline too, about the flexible benefits. That's very very. Yeah, I think flexible is the way to go in 2025. The word for when it comes to workplace or compensation or total rewards. Yes, I think it's more. It's not one size fit all kind of an
Right.
approach. It
Absolutely.
should be flexible. Yeah, that's right. Great. Great points there, Atish. So I think I'm going to move to very important topic. So without talking about it, I think none of the podcasts will be good enough, right? So AI. So
Yeah,
let's bring the elephant in the room, right? So no, I think I know we have had difference of I mean opinion and also conversations around it, but I think there are a lot of value to what you said as well. So when we've had chat offline, so AI can AI change the future of rewards? That's my question. And how do you think AI can help in enabling? So I think there are two ways to look at. So one is what is where you can actually have AI leveraged,
yeah,
because especially with anything which is related to HR and compensation and benefits or total rewards that function, there is a lot of specific employee information which is there, and then there's a lot of sensitive. It's all PII and very specific to the employees. So using that in AI, it's always a concern, and and how do you look at that? So and governance around that on using them with AI models. So how you are seeing that from your organization or in the past or in the current trend across your peers.
sure. Now, another great question, Naga. So I think you're absolutely right. I think AI has, and let's be absolutely clear, AI has been that a big transformation in terms of where companies are using a lot more of AI in their day-to-day operations. And you're absolutely right; it has been a game changer for a number of companies. So my own experience, and if I talk specifically around reward, I think the adoption of AI has been a little bit slow, and there has been some good reasons for it. There is one which is, as you can imagine, it's all about using sensitive data around people's remuneration, which again, there's companies are nervous around, whether this infringes any GDPR rules, etc. There is also an element of kind of uh, not wanting to try something which could result in a failure, and failure means that you have a lot of unhappy employees. So again, there is a resistance to adoption in reward, predominantly due to that thinking that if we get it wrong, this is not going to look good on us. So that's been another reason. I think the third element is that if you look at companies and where they are today in their AI journey, I think we have to bring that topic of budget, and a lot of companies out there today are having to prioritize where they bring in their AI solutions, right? So it's not just saying, okay, we will put AI in absolutely everything that we do. It's where they are bringing in AI first of all to actually generate more revenues, either through sort of automation or whatever, and they are looking at the adoption of AI into administrative functions more and more for the transactional sort of areas. So like generating contracts or sort of analyzing data. So that's kind of been my kind of observations in terms of AI adoption, where up until now, yes, there is a lot of conversation. There is appetite as well, but there is still some nervousness on adoption for those reasons, as I mentioned earlier. What I am also seeing is that as I'm, and you touched upon this, which is data, and I'm seeing a lot of data modeling that is used today in reward, which basically looks at different scenario based modeling around pay outcomes. It could be looking at data cleansing to make sure the data that gets fed into payroll systems is accurate, etc. So
Yeah.
I am starting to see AI adoption in those areas a lot more than it was before. But where you are asking an AI to come up with an option to or to validate whether a payment needs to be made or somebody's pay needs to be increased or whatever, I think we're not quite there yet. I think the level of AI sort of being looked at, and the impact on operations is still a big concern for a lot of companies, and again for the right reasons, as I mentioned to you earlier.
Yep.
So
Yep.
so I in a long-winded answer to your question, will AI be changing the landscape? Absolutely, it will. I think the rate at which we are adopting will be slightly slower than expected. But as and when we get more and more companies adopting
Comfortable.
it and having those success stories to share, I think people will then sort of be more and more inclined to actually adopt. But as I said, that adoption will be very measured in the initial years. So I still see a journey in terms of bringing AI into absolutely everything that we do. And in rewards, from a reward sense, as I said, it's not just about looking at data, but it's around process automation. Looking at how we can build our job architectures, how we can
Yeah,
build office,
absolutely.
and it's not just about looking at the transactional, raising a contract and what have you. So I do think there is definitely scope, and I think AI will be a game changer. We are already on that journey, so it's not like we are behind. But as I said, the rate of adoption needs to change for it to sort of really ramp up.
Yeah, I think also where to leverage the use of AI is also uh, to be more conscious about it is
Yeah,
important, especially when it comes to comp and ben.
agree.
And you talked about data, so I have a follow up on the data part, right? Especially when we use AI. If the data, one is a lot of companies having that right data for the AI, because AI requires that data for it to even give some meaningful inference, or even do some work using that data. But that's a challenge which I think you also feel
Yeah,
that the cleaning up of that is itself is a bigger initiative in terms of maintaining the right data for the AI models to consume. And also, if the data already has some unconscious bias, so then
right.
the using of that would also have an impact on the outcome, right? And let's say, for example, I also read about like job codes, or the descriptions about it. So
Right.
there are different, maybe within the organization there are the same job codes, or different job codes for the same job description exists, but probably it's hired in different places. But then
Right.
uh, so there are a lot of some of the data elements to it, right? There's one example
Yeah.
I brought it, but you may have looked at a lot of that
Yeah.
anomalies, which is actually needs to be cleaned up first, even before we start using that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Naga, you're absolutely right. I think if I look at the use of AI specifically around data analytics and predictive, data analytics, I think what I can see right now as of today is where you've got companies that have got sort of weak processes around governance or checking to make sure that data that's being entered into the system is correct. So when you're setting up a new employee, or you are sort of processing a change in employment status, or the individual being promoted, etc., I think a lot of what I'm seeing today is that where you have got weak checkpoints, let's put it that way.
Mm.
If you don't have good checkpoints, data that's going to enter into the system is going to be incorrect. And then what companies are having to do is then adopt massive AI efforts to actually identify where those gaps are. So to me, I think for those companies, especially who are not quite on that journey to start using AI for analyzing and interrogating data, I think they need to at least look at their processes around how data is processed in the company. So this could be in the HRIS or whatever, and identifying where those issues are. So having a two-eyed approach, making sure that there's a check mechanism every quarter. You run reports to look at your joiners, leavers, etc., making sure that everything's being processed correctly. That hopefully gives you that comfort that the data being fed into the AI machine eventually is correct. But I think, again, coming back to that earlier point that I raised, that not every company is on that journey yet. I think this would be a first step to make sure that their data cleansing efforts are put in place, so that when the AI sort of option is adopted, the information that's being fed in is accurate.
True. Definitely, I think there's no second thought about that, because data is the new dynamite, or so it is important to have that properly set up. I think my uh, last or second last question before we go into my rapid fire session.
Sure.
So first, the function, especially human resource as a function, is we all know, and it has the TA, the business HR and all that. But then you have a lot of different set of functions within the organizations, like an L&D,
Yeah.
and then comes the comp and ben,
Right.
So then benefits. So a lot of companies have benefits or even retirement solutions that's separate. So there is much more diversified set of team working. Maybe sometimes it's outsourced, and probably it's very siloed. Different teams give different inputs, but then again, how do you think this strategy is changing in 2025 and now on, in terms of having one function which is strategically looking at all this as
Yeah.
one, and trying to, then it comes building a total rewards which is much more compelling and
Yeah.
helping the employees in the organization.
Sure.
So what's your take on that?
Yeah, Naga, I think if I look at where I have seen that those cases of teams not talking to each other, where you've got, as you said, there's departments working in silos. I think those models are absolutely going to have some level of failure in some point in time. I think where I am kind of seeing things change, specifically around that collaboration and interaction between departments, is where we are using the data. So data becomes kind of your common denominator, and making sure that data follows each of those workflows and process steps, which then involves different people from different departments. So understanding where the data sits and how the data is utilized, I think is a key step forward. When you look at things like pay transparency, for instance, it's where businesses will have to look at, what is the rationale behind bringing somebody in at a lower pay versus somebody being brought in at a higher pay. Those kind of things would require those reward people getting up and talking to the HRBPs and
Yep.
what have you, to kind of get that level of information. And I think those kind of initiatives will then help understand, why we have the data, not in a good shape, or where we've got gaps in the data. And I think that's going to be fundamental for a lot of businesses. As I mentioned, with pay transparency, there will be a massive demand on employers to be able to explain why there are gaps in the data. And that almost is your environment where you are kind of forced collaboration almost with the departments to actually get the answers, so that you can go back to the individual. And so I think compliance will change that, those silos. However, I do think as you get into larger organizations, there's a lot more politics, there's a lot more reasons why people don't want to share. And it's unfortunately, it's a
It's
fact.
true.
Like, I know we joke about it, but it is a fact.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there are things like, as I said, pay transparency, which will force people to talk to each other and get information. Because let's be honest, if they don't, they are going to be non-compliant.
Yes. Yes. I'm not sure. I mean, the um, im- implications of hiding is going to be much more larger than being more transparent. I would say, right? So, of course, all uh, sense. Okay, true. My last question for today is on the budgeting.
Yeah,
That's a very difficult role to play, especially being a global head of rewards in any organization. It's not easy. I mean, any function is hard leading
yeah,
that is, but especially when it comes to deciding the budgets, because one trying to make sure that uh, diverting the right amount of budget for the right, because nothing comes for free, and we have to leverage with anyway, organizations are always looking to actually save cost in whatever means. So there is no free hand to spend. So how you've approached, and what is your experience,
yeah.
and probably for people looking at it to know how do we look at it, right? Because it's two different departments, and you need to divert the budget and satisfy
Right.
all the employees at the end of
Yeah.
the day. So how has been your experience on that?
Yeah, and Naga, I think it's in a short answer, it's not been easy. It has been difficult, especially where and again, let's be honest, post COVID, a lot of employers struggled to have decent budgets around pay. We've seen cost of living crisis, which has kind of forced some employers to actually pay more than what they had initially budgeted. So there is always economic demands, which then sort of changes behaviors. But I think we need to have an approach. I think from my side, and I'm going to be honest with you. I think I see sort of paid decisions, making paid decisions, a very emotive subject. I think people always, nobody would say, I think I'm being paid right. So I think for me, it's about driving the change and behaviors in business where you're using data, so having data driven pay decisions rather than sort of going on gut feel, which I think is absolutely fundamental. And where that data comes in is sort of looking at benchmarking, or looking at sort of pay points being offered by competitors, etc. That's where you can actually add value, and you can actually identify what is the right position, and what should be the right position around pay, and that then drives your budget demands. I will tell you this: there is no company that can sort of fix pay equity issues overnight. There is a lot of talk around how companies can do this, and it's going to be a journey. They will need to be very disciplined. They need to look at the data. They will need to understand where the gaps are, and have a very disciplined approach to closing those gaps. And that would not happen in 1 year or 2 years. It might be even over a longer period of time. I think that's where these employers will need to sort of be very mindful of. I mentioned to you again that total rewards, and looking at the benefits and looking at what else they offer, because some of the employees will have a very clear understanding of what they are worth in the market in terms of the skill sets. And so employers will need to, rather than sort of try and hide behind data or whatever, to have those open conversations, and help their employees understand that they are looking to kind of fix and address those gaps. That will not be done overnight, and that will take time. But this is where so those employers who haven't adopted any data-driven approach to making pay decisions in the past will have a bigger job, because they will find that a lot of people are paid. And let's be honest, it's not just about gender, but it's ethnicity gaps, and it could be sort of people.
Absolutely.
You're bringing in new talent, so bring people who are being brought in to the business more recently probably are being brought in at a higher pay point to existing people. So those kind of pay disparities you are going to find across all businesses. It's how those businesses identify and have a process and a strategy around closing those gaps. I think that's going to be fundamental. So hopefully I've answered that question, but
Yes.
I think it's going to be quite important that the employers keep focus on this, because this will be a big sort of differentiating factor between them and another employer, if the employee sort of is not happy about the way pay decisions have been made in the past in that environment.
True. I think you rightly said, right, the summary, which if you have to put it for the audience, is the organization has to look at the current approach, and start adapting to the change.
Right.
Else it's going to be tough. So either if you're already looking at revamping and looking at strategy, or trying to make a total reward which is more flexible and more specific to the current need,
Yeah.
else you're going to fall behind. And it's again, of course, we talked about, I think you made a point which was also very disturbing, that the attrition rate is, especially in United Kingdom or even in Europe, it's 4 to 5 years now, compared to people were staying for 10 plus years earlier, and in India it's or even in US it's way lesser than that. So
Right.
yeah, so it's going to be a ongoing battle to retain, if you want the top talents in the organization, right?
Agree.
Great. I think with that we have come to the end of the conversation, and I have the last segment, which is rapid fire. So total rewards in 60 seconds. So I'll go quick with my questions. So, and take your view. Salary or purpose?
Purpose.
Salary. Okay. That's no second thought on that. Yes,
No.
absolutely. Best benefit in 2025: 4-day work week, remote flexibility, mental health days, flexible benefits, which is employee specific.
Yeah. I would actually be. I would I would say
All
it's a combination of the last two, or maybe even last three.
okay.
I think 4 day week is definitely being considered, and a lot of companies are actually doing trials and trying to look at kind of the operational demand and how they can manage that. But I think 4 day weeks is going to take a while. I would actually say flexible benefits would be more the focus in 25.
Great. Yeah, that's right. Low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Global pay transparency. A, nay. Yes, it's overdue. No, it's risky.
It's overdue.
Okay,
It's overdue.
absolutely. Getting spot on. Total rewards equal to just compensation, pay plus benefits plus growth plus culture.
It's the last one. Definitely. It's not just about pay.
Yes. So every organization should start looking at it. Biggest motivator today: bonuses, career growth, belonging. That's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one. I would say career growth and belonging is very important for value proposition. So I
Yes.
would say that
Uh,
I think bonus is almost like an expected. It's as I mentioned to you. It's that what else can you do for me kind of
yes.
approach.
Yeah. No, I think I 100% agree with the career growth and belonging, which is the biggest motivator than
Right.
the just the number is. Skill based pay or role based pay.
Skill
Skills
based
rule.
pay.
Okay. Skills rule. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Future trend to watch. Personalized rewards, equity in gig economy, AI powered compensation planning.
I think there will definitely be some element of AI, as I mentioned to you earlier. But I think yeah, I would go with the AI option.
Okay. Personalized rewards with an AI based
I
compensation.
think so too. I think the personalization will come once we kind of have better understanding of what our employees want from the employment. So yeah,
Okay, that's it on the rapid fire. I think you've killed it,
brilliant.
Aatish.
Thank you.
So I think that was wonderful. I mean, wisdom to hear from you, especially on the space where you are a veteran, right, for last 25 years. So I think it's nobody else can do justice here. So thank you so much for joining me and
Thank you
for
for
being
having me,
part of
Naga.
on yes and sharing your giving your Sunday evening. And I think we've been talking about getting on air for 4 months 4 months now, but I know
Absolutely.
amidst your personal situation, you've
Yeah,
honored your commitment. I'm so grateful to you, Aatish. Thank you
most
so
welcome.
much.
Pleasure. My pleasure.
All right, thank you. And people wherever from where you're seeing, thank you once again for joining me and listening to this conversation. And again, um, and I'll wish everyone one more time, all the wonderful mothers out there, a happy Mother's Day. And see you all in another conversation on a live podcast or recorded. So please supporting my channel and like, share, and subscribe to Caffelogue with Naga for more updates. And thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.